You can't just punch your way out of problems anymore. You know? Mm-hmm.
As soon as I heard that line, I knew there would be a public incident with John Walker. I assumed it would involve a brawl with Sam and Bucky, and the end of that very episode supported this theory. Until episode 4, The Whole World Is Watching, rolled around. I expected a public incident. I did not expect a public execution. This week's episode was going to be about Zemo until I saw this image, this shot that will undoubtedly become one of the MCU's most iconic. I knew I had to talk about Captain America, about John and Sam. So today on Tears and Rain, we're going to look at the title Captain America, at the men who bear it, and what it means to follow the titan that was Steve Rogers.
The serum never corrupted Steve.
Touché. But there has never been another Steve Rogers, has there?
Captain America is one of the most iconic figures in the MCU. This is solely due to Steve's time as the Captain in World War II and as one of the Avengers' figureheads. Captain America was a figure who stood for justice, freedom, and honesty, but only because of who Steve was. That's why he received the serum in the first place, because he was the kid who would jump on a grenade for somebody else. Steve might not be in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but you can feel the impact he has had on every character in the show. From those who worked with him, those who looked up to him, and even those who fought him.
Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning.
Steve gave meaning to the title Captain America. His idealism kept the figure from being simple propaganda and made the Star-Spangled Man into a globally recognized icon. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier makes it quite clear that the world still reveres Steve as a hero, with the brief immortalization of his shield in the Smithsonian, despite the 2 years he spent as a criminal on the run. But the shield doesn't belong to Steve anymore. It belongs to John, and this new Captain America doesn't hold up at all. There's a reason that Steve chose Sam, and he would never have chosen John Walker. Walker isn't just a bad Captain America. He is antithetical to the very concept.
I sent the greatest soldier in history to make sure that didn't happen.
As smart as Nick Fury may be, he was wrong with this statement. Despite what the history books would like to say about him, Steve is a bad soldier. This very scene has Steve questioning his commanding officer. Later in The Winter Soldier, Steve effectively seizes S.H.I.E.L.D's remnants from Fury and takes command. When I said that Steve told the world to move earlier, it wasn't hyperbolic. The United Nations looked at Steve and told him to go against what he believed, and Steve refused. So long as his mission aligned with his sense of justice, Steve would continue, but only that far. Both The Winter Soldier and Civil War demonstrate that Steve is explicitly a poor soldier, trusting in his sense of justice over another's agenda. John is the opposite. He was given the shield specifically because he is a good soldier. In this way, he is Steve's antithesis. Steve was a poor soldier and a good man, and John is the inverse. John demonstrates this in episode 4, referencing a mission in Afghanistan that he calls wrong. Knowing that this mission was not correct, he followed through, the exact opposite of what Steve would have done in this scenario. Good soldier, not a great man. In Civil War, Steve talked about wanting to keep his freedom of choice as his reasoning to reject the Accords. Ultimately, however, Steve wanted to prevent the Avengers from becoming somebody else's weapon. John will go in whatever direction you point him. From the government's perspective, this makes John a far greater Captain America, but as we've seen throughout the show, John is not. He is aggressive, impulsive, and quick to resort to threats. John's sense of justice appears to be more in line with the Punisher's than with Steve's. This is never more clearly portrayed than at the end of episode 4, when John's first action after taking the serum is to kill a man.
Power just makes a person more of themselves, right? Carly Morgenthau, Steve Rogers.
As a certain purple bean might say, this was inevitable. John's pretty much always come up short throughout the show, especially in a fight. He tangles with the Flag Smashers and loses. He fights the Dora Milaje and really gets his ass kicked. John has been the type of man who finds justice at the end of a weapon, and with the serum, he can finally enact that savage justice against the super soldiers. None of this is to say that nobody can follow in Steve's footsteps. As previously mentioned, Steve chose Sam because Sam is the person closest to who Steve was. Sam is the only worthy successor to the Shield because he shares much of Steve's idealism. There's a reason Sam went on the run with him in Civil War. There's a reason Sam came out of retirement in The Winter Soldier. One of many moments that demonstrates Sam's ability to be Captain America is in The Whole World Is Watching when Sam tried to talk to Carly. The scene does a lot of work. It puts Sam and John into direct opposition and highlights their different approaches to justice. John comes in Shield fleeing, but Sam tries to reach Carly. Notably, this echoes Steve's sentiment that he believes in individuals rather than institutions. Where John sees nothing but a threat, Sam sees a young woman who might just need an open hand. This more compassionate approach is understandable since Sam used to counsel soldiers who came back to the States and had trouble reintegrating into society. Additionally, Sam has that same all-or-nothing approach Steve does to justice.
But you guys have rules of engagement and all kind of authorizations you have to get. We're free agents.
Sam definitely takes a less conventional approach to finding Carly by going along with Zemo and his various plots to find the Flag Smashers. He doesn't exactly accept Zemo as a person, but as a means to an end. But Sam wouldn't just make a good Captain America because he's like Steve. There's one glaring difference. Sam will bend. Part of what makes Steve such an interesting character is how his greatest strength is also a weakness. That indomitable will can easily breed an arrogant sense of certainty. What if Steve found himself in a situation where his internal moral compass pointed somewhere assuredly wrong? Steve shot down the Accords. He came close to signing, but didn't quite get there because he would have to bend too far. Sam demonstrates a willingness to listen that Steve doesn't. In episode 4, he says that Carly might have a point, which goes against both Bucky's and Zemo's views on the matter. And when, later in the episode, Carly asks Sam to join her or leave her, it makes sense. Sam connected with Carly after the funeral in a way John could never dream to, and even Steve would have struggled with. The world of the MCU has been altered by the blip and its undoing so greatly that Sam may be a better Captain America for it than Steve. A Captain America with a deep sense of justice and willingness to protect people, but who was also willing to listen, to bend, to change.
We need new heroes. One suited for the times we're in.